Good day, everybody. My name is Pietra, and today I'm going to talk to you about composting, about how we can produce compost. Okay, first thing is I'm going to send you one question. What is compost? Compost is a mixture of decaying vegetation and manure which can be used as a fertilizer. Gardeners used to call it black gold because of its many positive things. For example, in some clay or very hard soils, you can use compost to make the soil easier to process. And in sandy soils, you can use it to retain water and make plants grow better. Okay, so what is crucial for making a compost? First thing is moisture, the percentage of water needs inside of the compost. It's 50 to 65%. Then we have carbon-nitrogen ratio. It needs to be 30 to 1. Why? Because if the higher carbon-nitrogen ratio is, the longer the process of composting will last. And if it's lower, then we can have much more ammonia producing in the compost itself. Here we can see the browns and the greens material which can be used in a compost. Browns materials are usually called high carbon materials because their ratio, carbon-nitrogen ratio, is bigger than the optimal one. These kind of materials are like leaves, straw, paper, sand, etc. And the green materials used to call high nitrogen materials, like vegetable scraps, like manure, like coffee grounds, etc. The third crucial thing for making a compost, it's particle size. It's very important because the smaller sizes you have, the bigger the composting it will be. Then we have air and oxygen. It's important because our microorganisms need oxygen to maintain the aerobic system inside of the compost and to produce a very good quality compost. And the last one is microorganisms. In composting, we use mesophilic and thermophilic microorganisms. On this slide, you can see the temperatures in which these microorganisms grow. So, how to compost like a boss? First thing you need to do is to remove non-biodegradable compounds. These compounds are like plastic, metal, glass, etc. The second thing is to satisfy crucial conditions I mentioned before, and then you can stop composting. There are two phases of composting. The first one is called mineralization, and it includes a mesophilic phase and thermophilic phase. And the second one is humidification, which includes the cooling, the stabilization, and the maturing of the compost itself, and it's the longest phase. So we have a diagram how these compost phases look like. The first we have is a latent phase or adjustable phase, in which microorganisms adjust to this kind of system. Then we have a growth phase or a mesophilic phase, also called mesophilic phase. It lasts approximately 9 to 10 days. Then we have a thermophilic phase where the temperature is rising. And in this phase, bacteria, fungi, or actinomycetes are very important to make the compost. After 30 days, then we have a maturation phase, which includes the higher species like worms, beetles, centipede, etc., which in final produce the compost as we know. On this slide, you can see any sorts of species that are inside the compost. You can see even from the smallest species to the biggest species like centipede, earthworm, mite, etc. So what kind of waste can I compost? We see on this picture that the things you can put in the compost are vegetations like vegetables, like fruits, like leaves, also recycled paper, like of some old boxes, etc. But the things you need to put out are the things I mentioned before, like glass, metal, especially bones, and we also have here cheese. Because cheese can attract some microorganisms and animals that we don't want in our compost. Okay, now we have types of composting. There are two two crucial types. There are open and closed system. The difference is that in the open system, you don't have so much control over heat and gas as you have in a closed system. Also, in the open system, the weather has the biggest influence on the compost itself, and it can produce some bad smells. But if you control these crucial things that we mentioned before, I think that will not be any bad smell at all. So when the compost phase is finished, how do we know that is finished? The color of the compost itself is a dark brown. The compost is crumbly, loose, and humus-like. It has an earthly smell, and we do not recognize the things we put in the compost in the first place. And the pile has shrunk to about 1/3 of the original volume. So where we can use the compost, we can also use it in the garden. And like in surface mulch, in a lawn top dressing, to pot mix, and to also to fill the holes in the ground after some exploitation, etc. Here is a recipe how to feed your soil. In this picture we see the compost bin, in which are the layers of compost, the brown layer, the green layer, the brown layer, the green layer, etc. On the picture we see the mechanical rollover the compost. It's used in some industrial companies because the shelving is too hard to do. Okay, and the upper picture shows us the industrial closed system of composting. And we also need to make sure that those kind of vegetation did not end up in a trash, and to make a compost out of it. And thank you for watching my presentation.